Everyone is affected by the entertainment industry. You consume their media, you share it, and you create your own. Media is everywhere. It always has been. Sometimes we are so used to the screens around us that sometimes we don't see how it affects us. For this video, we will be focusing on the ethnic portrayals in American media. An example of this could be 1915's The Birth of a Nation. In that movie, it primarily focuses on the Ku Klux Klan and what they have done around the nation and how they have terrorized and done all this weird stuff to minorities and stuff like that. Yeah. This movie brought a lot of controversy and protest nationwide. Although this movie brought in a lot of money, there was also a lot of backlash. So much that there was a hearing in Detroit to get it taken down in the theaters, but was eventually withdrawn. Different sort of ethnic portrayals happened during the Golden Age. An example of this could be Dudley Dickerson. This actor was exploited for his eyes to portray stereotypes during that time. During the Golden Age, there was also a lot of stereotypes projected towards Asians. An example could be the Three Stooges, The Yolks on Me, and the Drums of Fu Manchu. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. During this time, we also see a lot of Charlie Chan and Fu Manchu stereotypes, and also Devil Doctor stereotypes. The interesting part about this time in American media is that around this time, we see the age gap between Asian Americans and whites close, when we also see the average Asian American household income rise above blacks. This comes from more efforts and Asian Americans' emphasis on becoming a model minority. Because of this, racism against Asian Americans diminished. African Americans did this too. There was a very big emphasis on becoming a model minority in all minorities in the nation. It was just at the time, local politicians and the government really saw Asians more than African Americans. After the Golden Age and up until recently, there hasn't been a lot of improvement in diversity or ethnic portrayals. It's always been the same thing most of the time. So we really don't see any improvements up until about 2017, 2016 is when we see a really large improvement significantly in movies specifically. Recent events have shown that there have been significant demands and significant calls for diversity in media. Starting with around 2017, you have movies like Hidden Figures and Coco, and up until Black Panther, Crazy Rich Asians, Get Out. All these movies see significant reactions from minorities. Starting with Hidden Figures, this movie becomes the second biggest release for Fox of that year, behind Deadpool, and it also makes $200 million that year. In the same year, Coco also sees $807 million from box office sales that year. Although we see significant improvements, there are still movies that leave out characters and certain parts of the cast. An example of this could be Dunkirk. This movie consists of an all-white cast that portrays British and French soldiers. Although this is accurate to some extent, the movie does not include the Algerian, Moroccan, and Indian soldiers that fought alongside British and French soldiers. We also see some whitewashing in films around this time also, in movies like Ghost in the Shell and Death Note. Other movies with diverse casts also see good box office sales. For example, Get Out. Get Out generates $225.8 million in the box office and also gets a 98% approval rating from Rotten Tomatoes, according to Rotten Tomatoes. Another significant movie that has premiered in the past 2 years is Black Panther. Black Panther has generated $1.347 billion in the box office and has also received praise for African and African American representation. The most recent movie that has gained a lot of recognition for its diverse cast and has broken records is Crazy Rich Asians. Crazy Rich Asians ends up bringing in $238.5 million and also becomes the highest grossing romantic comedy in a decade. The real reason for this research and for these stats are to show why diversity is important in media and specifically Hollywood films today. An analysis by the creative artist industry based off of 100 films that have over a $100 million budget. There was a $120 million difference between movies with a diverse cast versus movies that didn't. Also, record-breaking responses at the box office have shown that people want to see themselves on screen. Representation on screens and in media is really important because news and entertainment media teach the public about minorities and other ethnic and societal groups. Specifically, they teach people who don't necessarily have contact with these groups. The media influence not only how people view minorities, but also how these minorities view themselves. Minorities find negative media stereotypes demoralizing and tend to reduce self-esteem and expectations. These also create stress and drain cognitive resources in some contexts. Diversity in American media is important because it's important to show the people that live in this country. It's obvious that studies have shown people want to see themselves on screen, and people want to see characters that they can relate to on screen. So why wouldn't you appeal to that? And why wouldn't you create these different stories to try to this movie brought a lot of controversy and a lot of protests from nation. Yeah. This movie brought a lot of controversy and this movie brought a lot of